Chibi-Robo Ziplash is quite a polarizing game in the minds of Nintendo fans. It's a Chibi-Robo game, but it's also not a Chibi-Robo game, in that it shies away from the franchise's original concept of being a 3D adventure. While still having a measure of exploration, Ziplash is a spin-off that has taken the series in a new direction with it being a 2D platformer. There is definitely an overabundance of 2D platformers on Nintendo systems right now, whether that be Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, New Super Mario Bros. 2, and even the recently released Super Mario Maker. So it's very easy for Ziplash to fall into the trap of just being yet another platformer, and that's how some people see it. Is Chibi-Robo Ziplash really that bad though? Well, in my opinion, it's a pretty solid experience. I'm a sucker for platformers, and I had a wonderful time puttering around as the pint-sized hero. Now, for starters, I have never played a Chibi-Robo game in my life outside of Ziplash, so I didn't have any preconceived ideas of how things needed to be handled here to make it feel like a Chibi-Robo game. I was just going in hoping for a fun platformer, and that's certainly what I found. Is it the best platformer on the market that Nintendo fans need to pick up? Well, no, but it's definitely not a pile of garbage. The best way I can describe it is to compare it to a Kirby game. Not in a gameplay sense, but in terms of its challenge and pace. It is very easy, with some exceptions, and its pacing is slow and laid back, which is why it reminds me of the oh-so-lovable Puffball. Now, one of the core mechanics of this new Chibi-Robo game to set it apart from other modern platformers is found right there in the title of the game, the Ziplash. Chibi can use the plug attached to his booty as a whip to attack robotic enemies and grapple from platforms. This, outside of a handful of vehicular levels and a couple power-ups you rarely see, it's the focal point of Ziplash. And honestly, I really enjoyed the mechanic. There's something really satisfying when you ricochet the plug off walls to reach hidden treasure, barrel through a line of enemies, or smash a clump of blocks. So the game is less about jumping and more about latching onto ledges and platforms with the mighty Ziplash, and it handles quite smoothly, except for the fact you can't throw the plug straight above you without charging up the Ziplash, which sometimes slows things down a bit. Now, as I mentioned, Ziplash does include a couple power-ups for Mr. Chibi. Plugging himself into special electrical outlets, he can transform into a fiery or icy Chibi-Robo to melt ice or freeze fire. They were enjoyable to use, but you rarely encounter them, maybe only 3 times in the entirety of the game. They definitely felt underutilized, but they were a nice distraction from throwing your plug around all the time. It wouldn't have hurt if there were a few more ideas thrown in like these power-ups to mix up the platforming. One thing that can be a bit tricky at times is making vehicle-based levels in a platformer, because they can sometimes feel out of place and not capture the same magic as the thing the game is based around, platforming. With a couple exceptions, the vehicle segments actually turned out to be some of the best stages in Chibi-Robo's latest adventure. They tended to offer more of a challenge, as getting hit once would sometimes result in you having to start from the very beginning of the stage. Zipping around on a skateboard or wakeboarding behind a boat, all the while getting massive airtime off ramps, was a total blast, but then you get to the 2 submarine stages. To hear me, they are pretty awful, because the sub moves like a sack of potatoes and is slower than molasses. The other vehicles, great, but the submarine, yeah, we don't speak of that. I also have to give some major props to the bosses in this game, because for the most part, they are a delight. Especially the final boss fight. I can't really say anything about it without spoiling it, but just know, it definitely was a satisfying way to round out the adventure, as it's totally different from anything else you encounter in the game. Now, one of the biggest complaints I'm hearing about Chibi-Robo Ziplash has to do with the destination wheel. This is your means of getting to the next stage in the game, and in a way, it's set up like a board game. The 6 stages in each of the 6 worlds are laid out in a circular loop, and you spin the destination wheel after each completed level. Whatever number you land on when spinning the wheel is how many steps you move on the level select board. That way, you'll more than likely play stages out of order. But the problem that arises is how you can also land on levels you have already completed, forcing you to play them over again. At first, I was pretty bewildered by this, as it felt like a mechanic that they threw in there just for the sake of being different. It's certainly unique, but it's still strange, and I could do without it. But the game does include a means for you to have a bit more control on what number the destination wheel lands on. You can purchase numbered panels with the gold you accumulate while playing to fill the destination wheel with the number you want. This eliminates a lot of the frustration, and because of that, I didn't find the mechanic to be too bothersome while playing. If it wasn't for this failsafe, it would have been a disaster. And hey, once you beat a world, you can then freely choose any level you want, so it's not all bad, right? Chibi-Robo Ziplash also does not skimp skimp out on collectibles. There's a ton to find in each and every stage, ranging from real-world snacks to miniature chibi bots. As a result, that means stages are packed with secret areas, allowing for quite a bit of exploration and replayability. This, tacked onto the zip lash mechanic, is what I found to be so enjoyable in the game. There's a moment of satisfaction that you get when you find these hidden areas, and since there are so many of them, you get that feeling a lot. As for those real-world snacks I mentioned, there are these Toy Story-like people you'll come into contact with throughout the game who are looking for specific snacks. These toys, like Toby the Plane, are just so stinking bizarre, but I say that in a good way. They ooze this charm that'll probably bring a smile to your face at least once. Nevertheless, when you give the toys the snacks they want, they start rattling off about how much they love them. Okay, this might seem weird, but I actually liked listening to the toys talk about the snacks, because most of the real-world food was totally foreign to me, and I enjoy hearing some fun facts about them. Is it blatant product placement? Sure, but I didn't feel it hampered the experience. Oh, and FYI, I think Nintendo got a hefty check from the Utz brand. Just saying. Ziplash also includes costumes that Chibi-Robo can wear that have no bearing on the gameplay other than the fact it makes the little guy that much cuter. I was not a big fan of how they decided to execute the process of unlocking them though. It just felt needlessly complex. Costumes are earned by rescuing baby aliens in a stage, but they only appear after completing a level once. That alien will give you one number in a 5-digit code. To get the other numbers, you have to go on Miiverse and search through the numbers that the other players have posted on there. Then, you plug the 5-digit code in, play through the level again, save the alien, and hopefully get a costume in return. It's a roundabout way of doing things, and I really didn't like it. It's easier to cheat and go on Google to search for the 5-digit code so you don't have to go on a scavenger hunt on Miiverse. It would have been better if they just eliminated the codes altogether and gave you the costume straight away for rescuing the aliens. Now, Ziplash is yet another game in Nintendo's lineup to offer up amiibo support, and this time around the little robot guy is getting his very own amiibo. Yes, you can buy a bundle that includes the game and a Chibi-Robo amiibo, and ironically, Ziplash is the one game I have used amiibo the most in. Tapping the amiibo into the game allows you to use a vending machine to unlock and collect various in-game figurines, with there being 200 altogether. After beating a stage, you can earn points to level up your amiibo, and when you do go up a level, it allows you to collect rarer figurines. Collecting the figurines is fun though, which is the reason why I use the amiibo so often throughout my playtime. Plus, using the amiibo mid-level turns you into the stronger Super Chibi-Robo, which is meant to help you out if you're having a tough time beating a level. Since the game is so easy though, you don't really need that extra help, and you'll barely use the amiibo for that exact feature. It does make Chibi-Robo walk faster though, so that's a plus. Now, in terms of what Chibi-Robo's packing in the graphical department, it's not mind-blowingly amazing, but it's also not horrid either. You've got your standard grassy landscapes, deserts, icy tundras, and volcanic environments. It's all stuff we've seen hundreds of times before. It's simple, but quite pleasing. Chibi-Robo is only 10 centimeters tall, and they try to convey that through the scale of the objects in the environment. But honestly, I didn't feel like I was a pint-sized hero in a gigantic world. I guess that has to do with the game being designed as a 2D platformer rather than Chibi's original design as a 3D adventure game. You just don't get that grand scale now, considering you're only running left and right. Also, the enemy designs are nothing special. They are very plain and lack personality. This is probably the biggest gripe I had with the game's visuals. On the other hand, I was really impressed by Ziplash's soundtrack, because it's all around solid. Seriously, it's really good. It's all electronic, which is totally fitting, considering it's Chibi-Robo and he's all about that little thing called electricity. I can't say there was a single tune that got stuck in my head, but man, the upbeat soundtrack most certainly enhances the journey. So overall, Chibi-Robo Ziplash is not going to be a game for everyone. It's slow, laid back, and easy. If you like Kirby games, you might like Ziplash. If you don't like Kirby games, then you'll probably not like it. Plus, it's another 2D platformer on a Nintendo system, and you might be a bit sick of them at this point. Surprisingly though, I had a pleasant time playing it. I loved the Ziplash mechanic, the onslaught of collectibles and hidden areas, the upbeat electronic soundtrack, and hey, even the amiibo support was not half bad. The destination wheel could have been done away with, the method of unlocking costumes is kind of unnecessary, and those darn submarine levels are stupid. But in all, I found Chibi-Robo Ziplash to be a good game. And that will bring us to the end of this review. And if you like what you saw, please give this video a thumbs up, add it to your favorites, and all that good stuff. But I will talk to you all later in the next video, guys. Bye!